So how did you start getting involved with this part of Judaism? I mean, it's very unique. And if you could tell us a little bit about how did you get there?
So it's a several stage journey. It really began when I was 19 years old. We give you the short, long version. And my mother was dying. And she was dying from complications from diabetes. And we hadn't even known she was ill till a couple of years before, but she'd been ill since she was a young woman. And our whole family was at a time of enormous crisis. And I was very close to my mother, so it was like, just shattering. And when she actually passed away, no, actually 6 months before she passed away, no, a year. It's actually a little more than a year and a half to be precise. One forgets after, 40 odd years. That I heard that my father's younger sister was marrying a rabbi. And I thought that was very strange because she was this really hip, unusual person. And even though her father had been a chazan, a cantor, and so she'd grown up in her early years, they'd been Orthodox, then a little more relaxed. But she just had been, she was a theater arts teacher. Anyways, they said, okay. And then I happened to be in Europe at the time. And said, well, come back for the wedding to New York. And I came, and turns out she was marrying Shlomo Carlebach. And first time I met him was at his wedding with about 2,000 other people. And he began that journey for me, showing me a whole other way of living Judaism, which was very much connected to Chassidut and Nigun, music, learning and thinking and serving, very much about learning the text in a deeper way. And therefore, the things I'd kind of grown up with and wondered what they were for, because I'd grown up with a Hebrew school education, this suddenly became alive. And I became very close to him and his chevra. And that took me on a journey for a number of years. And it upheld me in that moment in asking questions about, what is life about? But then, about 15 years later, I was going through another transformation in life. And I was asking questions again because the answers I found didn't take me far enough. And at that point, through a series of what we could call coincidences, or we call them God pushing me around, I met a woman who was a Swami who was visiting Israel and teaching Orthodox Jews Jewish meditation based on yoga. And I, almost against my will, got pulled into that group and ended up finding that at the time I was looking for, I was finished rabbinic school and I was thinking of starting a yeshiva that would be different than other yeshivas, that really would be about God. And I couldn't find anybody that gave me any direction. And the first time I went to meet this Swami, we ended up speaking for 3 hours about exactly that. And so I knew this was a teacher for me. So she became my primary teacher, and she took me to a whole other level of the spiritual life and inner life, making God real and tangible. And she showed me how to look at the Jewish sources, holistic, Hasidic, rabbinic, from a yogic point of view, which brought incredible insight and clarity to them that I'd never seen before, understood before. And that started me on that path and created a foundation for it. And then in late 80s, we ended up deciding, we've been in Israel for 8 years, and we decided it was time for, we thought, a Shabbaton, a year or so abroad. We had an opportunity to be in the south of France in a little village. So we took our kids and our family, and had a few other friends that were going, and our teacher was going there. So we followed her and ended up staying 30 years, living a contemplative life in this little village in the south of France, with a group of people around my teacher that would come a certain period of time, then coming back and forth. And then, we moved back to Israel for a while. We went back again to France. And then we decided our boys are old enough to be away at school, and we wanted to really live a contemplative life there. And then I reached a point where I realized that I really needed to take everything I'd learned about other religions and about Judaism and go back and look at them again and create a whole path out of that teaching, not just bits and pieces. And so I've been doing that for the last 20 years. And what you're receiving is the fruits of all that work. Self and my wife know me and experience of the work. And 3 years ago, decided it was time to come back and start really teaching these teachings and teaching the meditations. A lot of them are based on Kabbalistic meditations that were also taught by my teacher, or the groundwork for them was shown to me. And just more and more I have felt, as I go to all kinds of places, that Judaism needs a spiritual path that's completely focused on God, and that's the total center point. And everything else revolves around that. And one that's very open, universal, but deeply anchored within the tradition at the same time, not just with the sprinkling. And that's the work I've tried to bridge, and I'm doing. So I just keep getting pulled deeper and deeper into it. Yeah, I mean, how did this weekly meditation start? Corona started. We were, till that point, we were having live meditations here and monthly retreats, but we suddenly couldn't do any of it. And my daughter-in-law said, this is a once in 20-year experience where nobody can work and everybody's looking. And I'm also thinking, people are struggling. They really need something. Let's do meditations. So we started doing the daily meditations. And then we're doing that. And then we decided to have a meditation membership, the Holy Apple Orchard, to get more of a group of people. And then I was talking to Rena about this work. And she said, what you need to do is start a Jewish meditation course. And so we were going to do a small course that was going to be 7 or 8 sessions long. And somehow over 6 months, it grew to 24 or 5 sessions. And then after we created it, I had to teach it. And and of course, I had written a book on Jewish meditation 6 years ago. And this allowed me to take everything that was part of my journey since then and revisit it, and infuse the teaching from the book with all the new understanding and practices and teaching. And then we'll see what's next. And it just keeps going. That's how I got into it, how I stay into it. And Naomi is an even more profound contemplative than me, and so she makes sure I don't get strayed too far from the path. And we have Sarah and some beloved friends that are around that are part of it. And now all of you are also part of this journey.